It all ends here. Ten of Swords Destruction is the final issue in the Ten of Swords event, capping off a 3-month X-Men crossover and heralding the next era of X-Men comics to come. It's a tremendously satisfying conclusion to the event, with exciting teases for what's to come for Hickman's X-Men. Today I'll answer, could I have precogged this event any harder? How Ten of Swords actually ends? What does the event's conclusion mean for X-Men comics moving forward as we enter the reign of X? And of course, theories and predictions for what's to come in X-Men comics. Let's do it. Let's dig into Krakin Krakoa number 124. Hey everybody, I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of Comic Book Herald. If you like Comic Book Herald YouTube channel or Krakin Krakoa, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting on the video here. News for you as well, if you are a Krakin Krakoa fan and subscriber, I will be hosting a live stream here on Saturday, November 28th, circa 11 a.m. Central Time, with Blurred Without Fear and Verno from the Cerebros podcast. It will be a Ten of Swords post-game report. We will be digging into all things with the event, as I'm about to do a little bit of my own here, but we'll be doing a live stream deeper, so join us for that. There will be a link in the show notes. Otherwise, spoilers for Discuss Comics may follow. Writers Jonathan Hickman and Tini Howard, artist Pepe Larraz, colors by Marte Gracia, letters by Clayton Cowles. As Excalibur sat up in the previous chapter, the all-out war finale kicks off with the return of the Captain Betsy Corps. Saturnyne brings back the Betsy-led Captain Britain Corps as the defenders of Otherworld, and their presence begins to give the Krakoan swordbearers a fighting chance. For my money, this is the best-looking issue of the event. Pepe Larraz and Marte Gracia are absolute beasts throughout this whole thing. The designs, that little frog Captain Britain, everything about it is delicious and wonderful, and I love it. This is an amazing, amazing looking X-Men comic, so shouts to both of them. The battle essentially progresses with each side one-upping the other by bringing in more reinforcements. War, the Child of Apocalypse, calls forth immense summoners. Turns out all summoners look like our dirty boy, Summoner, who we saw as the grandchild of Big Daddy A, which makes his loss, Summoner's loss, even less difficult to deal with because, again, he's a dirty, rotten, lying boy. So we get like this fantastic Cthulhu beast and where to find them throughout, and the summoners are bringing the heat with all of Amen's many monsters, taking on, again, the Krakoan swordbearers. Now, there was no 10th swordbearer. It was long rumored that, and I was pitching theories that, like, hey, there's still a 10th swordbearer needed on Krakoa, but there is a sword, all caps, an acronym, of course. Illyana Rasputin here, she uses her stepping disc, opens a portal to bring Cyclops, Jean, and the Cuckoos crashing in with the big old sword space station, which, again, I precogged way back when, saying I think that's how they're going to save Cable. That's how they're going to come and save the day. They're going to crash into Otherworld with the Sword Space Station, and lo and behold. It's a great callback here to Illyana and Sykes' previous captains' conversations, and a cool way for Cyclops to skirt the no Krakoan gateways problem that we saw outlined in X-Men number 15. I also appreciate here that Cyclops and Jean talked Emma, Nightcrawler, and Kate Pryde out of joining them on this trip, which would have forsaken their quiet council standing, even though Cyclops' rationale that Kate couldn't use the gates was clearly a well-intentioned lie. So Cyclops and Jean, they come crashing in with an X-Men army, an X-Men reunion army, in one of my favorite single pages of the Dawn of X, hands down, and a moment that led to some combination of cheering, delight, joyous expletives, and thank goodness I'm alone dancing. Like, this page is a joy to behold. Obviously, you can dig into all the mutants that are there. For my money, the two that stood out the most are Dupe, which we definitely need to see more of, and Gwenpool with a like central position. And yes, I am aware Gwenpool is on Krakoa per the Leia Williams miniseries for that character most recently. But after all of Saturnyne's scheming, you know, she did set up Cable, Cyclops, and Jean with the knowledge of how to stem Amenth. Like, that was actually part of her plan. The wild card was she needed help from Apocalypse. So Cable kind of gets a clue from Saturnyne here. He gets on the sword base with Dad and Mom, and they unleash the Vescora, this alien race that we met back in the first Cable chapter tie-in of the Ten of Swords event. And basically, like, all we know about the Vescora at this point is they're this weird, mysterious alien race that just destroys things very, very fast. Like, they wiped out the entire Sword Space Station in a matter of minutes. They do that here to the hordes of Amenth, which, again, unleashing the Vescora from the sword base, precogged. And, you know, it feels all right to watch a bunch of Vescora kill a bunch of summoners because, again, we've seen nothing good from the summoners. Perhaps we will find some very nice summoners in the future, although I kind of doubt it. There is the opening quote to this issue as well. I will carry these burdens forever, and if not forever, then until the day I die. From Apocalypse. There's been a lot of teasing that, like, okay, maybe this is a Death of Apocalypse story, and even though it's not that, this is an Apocalypse story, right? And viewing it as much of anything else is going to generate wayward expectations. Like, Ten of Swords as an event, yes, it's an X-Men event, but it's an Apocalypse-driven X-Men event. I mean, that is the central, like, part of this and the heart of this comic book. In Apocalypse here, he takes on the Annihilation helmet from his wife, from Genesis, so they've had their sword fight in the preceding couple chapters, and Genesis is now fully consumed by the Annihilation helm. Apocalypse, he takes the helm from her and wears it. And again, I'm going to keep saying this, it would have been difficult to have precogged this event any harder. Apocalypse in that Annihilation helm too, again by Larraz and Marte Gracia, off the charts cool looking. Like, I know it would have been a loss if Apocalypse totally lost himself to the Annihilation helm, but man, would he have looked cool for a number of comics. We do also get the really good moment here after Apocalypse takes the Annihilation helm, where we see Iska turning sides to signal. Iska the unbeaten, her powers she cannot lose, turn sides to signal that Krakoa is going to win. It's such an awesome kind of like wrestling WWE moment, when the announcers lose their mind at the sudden appearance of like Andre the Giant or whatever coming in the 11th hour. Iska changing sides in the final moment. It's like, oh, cool. The X-Men and Krakoa are going to win this thing. So Annihilation's goal, this mysterious demonic helmet, is unending conquest. Apocalypse only wants to save his people. He doesn't care about conquest in this moment. So he does what would have been unthinkable for this, survival of the fittest type character who has actually grown here, as we've seen in X-Men and we've seen throughout this event. He surrenders. He gives up, right? And like against Annihilation's whims. So Saturnyne and Shogo following this, Shogo being Jubilee's son, who is also a dragon, in Otherworld specifically, they raise the battlefield of all the unnecessary players, as Saturnyne puts it. And then Saturnyne literally turns the helmet, turns Annihilation into a more comfortable staff. So they can't like get rid of it entirely, but she's basically like, all right, we at least don't need people putting this on their heads and losing their minds to it. So following this, which is basically the end of the war essentially, Saturnyne demands that one mutant from Amenth live on Krakoa and one from Krakoa live in Amenth. It definitely feels very The Pact from like New Gods, Kirby's New Gods. Genesis, for her part on the Amenth side, she picks Apocalypse, returning her husband to her, and Apocalypse picks Arakko to return the mutant island and its millions of mutant prisoners. One thing I don't totally get here is why Genesis and company, namely the children of Apocalypse, need to return to Amenth at all. They hate it there. Like, it's terrible, and they were essentially imprisoned there because of Annihilation's attack on Okara way back when. I don't really get why they have to go back there. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe they still, kind of need to be a force to keep the demon hordes at bay, I suppose. And yeah, they've built a civilization and a society there. But it sure seems like if I'm Genesis, I'd be like, yeah, can I go home now? But no, not to be. So Apocalypse leaving, it does open up another council seat. So you have Jean Grey going to be off the Quiet Council because she took this adventure and the council voted that means you're out. We have Apocalypse off because he's going to Amenth, to be rarely heard from, I suppose. Storm looks like she's heading off per a panel we're going to get here to later, a little tease about what's coming for her. And if Kate and Emma's Revenge pans out like we think it will in Marauders, Sebastian Shaw ain't long for that seat either. So there's going to be some real turnover on the Krakoan Quiet Council, which I'm very, very interested to see. Apocalypse's final act, too, for now at least, is that he reunites Okara, the One Land. We get Arakko and Krakoa back together again, or at least that's the promise here. And this will seemingly move millions of mutant prisoners to Krakoa, rocketing their numbers like very, very suddenly. So assuming they all kind of fall into the structure of Krakoa and that there's not some like immense challenge to get them to be on, Team Krakoa, mutantdom in Marvel just got so much stronger in sheer force of numbers. It's really interesting how that's going to change the status quo on Earth 616. We do get some data pages here that, tease out some things. The first is the Swords of Arakko, their various status. The ones that interested me the most, so we have Redroot. She is still in Jim Jasper's possession, okay? So Jim Jasper literally bottled her after she broke something in the Crooked Market in a previous chapter here, so that's where Redroot's at. Solemn, we learn here, is officially on Earth, setting up a soon-to-happen reunion with Wolverine and their twin Muramasa blades, which is unsurprising. Marvel teased Solemn as like a new Wolverine archenemy, and frankly, I'm all for it. Like, it's been a really cool character, and I'm interested to see him in more stories written by Benjamin Percy. We do have Death captured in Sevalith in Otherworld, not dead, as implied following battle with Storm, which is a revelation here. And it's possible we've seen this confirmed elsewhere, but it's the first time I remember like observing it. Iska is officially an Omega mutant, okay, which makes sense, right? Like, I'm not totally sure about her whereabouts after this. She's not in the scene where Apocalypse and his children, who tried to kill him, but, I guess they'll talk about that, and his wife Genesis are marching back to Amenth. So I don't know where Iska actually went, but her Omega level status is very interesting. And then the final thing, the Twilight Blade is missing in Otherworld, okay? So I don't feel like we got a great sense of what the Twilight Blade is actually capable of. There's that panel that we've seen over and over of the Twilight Blade shattering the one land. And of course, like, as I've talked about way back when I was just learning about the Ten of Swords event, like, the Twilight Sword has a lot of meaning in the Marvel Universe. I guess this is something different. But it's missing, and that has some meaning, but I feel like there's a fair amount of story that could still go with that. On the Krakoan side of thing, I mean, the only real thing that really grabbed me with where their swords are at was the plans to resurrect Gorgon via a corrupted version a la Rockslide, which we saw in, I think it was X Factor number 4, which is the second chapter of this event. And what Gorgon might look like post-resurrection, right? Because it's going to be this conglomeration of like an omniversal, like all the Gorgons of all realities in one body. It is interesting too, like, hardly anybody died on the Krakoa side, in this event. There was a lot of predicting about like, hey, who's not going to make it, because there's all this talk of sacrifice. And at the end of the day, it was really just like Rockslide and Gorgon. But with this resurrection where they're going to come back, they're just going to come back different. So I'm really curious to see how that'll play out, like what that actually means to be a corrupted resurrection. And hopefully we can see more of that in like X Factor specifically. Related, I think the biggest thing from the official reformed Captain Betsy Corps document is that Betsy is still lost, right? So saying hardly anybody died. Well, Betsy, I guess, sort of, kind of, maybe did, but she's unaccounted for via the Captain Betsy Corps doc. So, like, Betsy's not gone. We're going to see her again, but there's a mystery there, and there's something to be unveiled in the pages of Excalibur, I'm sure. My favorite tease here, and my favorite theory that I probably have, so there's a kind of a walkthrough of, like, all right, what's changed? We got Quiet Council seats, things I mentioned, right? Things that are going to be different. Swords coming, right? We know the upcoming Sword series will launch in December by Al Ewing and Valerio Schiti, which I'm extremely excited for. But big thing here is, like, okay, it says Storm, she returns her sword to Wakanda, right? No surprise there. But the goddess turns her eyes to the stars. Okay, now, given that she's not, like, a featured player in the Sword ongoing, my theory here is that Storm is going to go off into space to expand mutant relations across the cosmos, right? Like, the X-Men need someone who is a mutant liaison, essentially, for alien mutants to get them kind of as part of the Krakoan network. So, like, if you've seen my Kraken Krakoa video on, the X-Men Conquer the Galaxy theory, like, they are building up alien alliances and alien mutants. They are expanding their numbers. We just saw them do it with Apocalypse's scheme here to get Arakko and all of the Arakko mutants, right? Like, they are boosting mutant numbers so that mutants are the dominant species on the planet and in the galaxy. And I think Storm it would give her a really interesting new angle for a solo ongoing that I would love to see launch. I even have a creative team ready. I've got writer Vita Ayala and artist Fal Richardson. So I am looking forward to that launching. I'm going to guess June 2021. Let's just throw it out there. The other teases have to do with Otherworld. So Saturnyne, she repurposes both the Summoners and the Vescora to Blightspoke. It is confirmed here that Apocalypse and Genesis' son, Death, not in my top 5 names, but, to each their own, is basically a prisoner of the Sevalith vampires, and given his, upright position at this point, possibly some sort of vampire himself, which is interesting to me. And overall, I really like what was done for Otherworld here. Like, I don't know that it panned out perfectly, but it's a drastically improved realm in the Marvel Universe fabric. I was never really into or that interested in Otherworld before this point. Now I'm really interested. So if Excalibur or really any of the X books spend more time revisiting these realms as part of the narrative, I'll be a lot more invested in those books. I think Excalibur specifically could benefit a ton from playing with like all this world building that was done in Otherworld, because otherwise it'd be like, it would just feel like a waste, like we built out this whole realm. What was it for if we're not going to come back here? So I'm interested to see how that'll continue to play in X-Men comics moving forward. So again, I love this final issue in the event, and the 3 core issues, honestly, Creation, Stasis, and Destruction, I think are masterworks. Like, they're all excellent. Like most comic book events, the biggest failing, I would say, is length. I mean, the Ten of Swords got extended to 22 parts. In the original 15 or so, I think is what it was intended to be at before the pandemic hit. That probably would have been about right, actually. Nonetheless, I'm still generally high on Ten of Swords. It's definitely the second best X event since 2012, which isn't nothing, and the ending cements those positive vibes that I'm feeling. So, like, there's a rocky path there, but again, second best event, definitely since 2012, probably even a little bit earlier, because I think I like it more than Avengers vs. X-Men, and it's, again, like, the bookend issues, Creation, Stasis, and Destruction, are all extremely good when you get Hickman, Tini Howard, Pepe Larraz, and Marte Gracia all together. So the Krakoan at the end of this issue reads The Reign of X, which I was like, oh, cool, I guess it's time for a new era in X-Men. And then that was confirmed. Marvel today, as these comics came out, November 25th, 2020, dropped a promo teaser for The Reign of X. And on this teaser alone, like, I have a lot of thoughts. Okay, there's a lot to dig into here. It's super fun. We'll be discussing this on Saturday's live stream. Again, it's going to be November 28th, and the link should be in the show notes, so I recommend you join us for that. Odds are, frankly, if there's a strong enough outcry from you all in the comments, I may do a weekend Kraken Krakoa video just on this teaser for The Reign of X, because I do think that'd be a lot of fun. But let me know if you are interested or if I should wait for, like, more information. Big picture, though, I'm really excited about where the X-Men go from here. The Quiet Council is shaken up. Cyclops and Jean are reforming some kind of, team of X-Men. Mutantdom is expanding to Okara, and we know upcoming stories we've been away from, for example, Wolverine, Sync, and Darwin, returning from the vault, are right around the corner. So there's a lot of cool stuff to come. Like, I think I don't know if this is definitely the way it's going to shake out, but, like, if approximately every year there's one X event and then, like, a rebrand, like a soft rebrand of what it means for the era, so we go from Dawn to Reign to something else next, I'm really into that. That's cool. Like, that's a good structure for a line of comics in the Marvel Universe. Again, it means, like, it gives a set sort of timeline too to, like, what creators are doing and what status quo they're playing with in Mutantdom in the Marvelverse. So I'm digging it. I really like where things are shaking out here. I want to know what you think, though. Let me know your comments and theories on the event as a whole, where the Reign of X might be going. I definitely want to hear theories there, on how everything ended on Destruction. Was it a satisfying conclusion? I know many of you, like, there's definitely a 50-50 split on, like, people who love this event versus people who are like, yeah, this didn't work for me. I get that, but, like, how did this conclusion, how did the actual ramifications work for you moving forward? And what do you want to see in X-Men comics coming up in the Reign of X? That's what I want to hear from you all. So give me some comments here, and I will respond to as many as I can. Thanks to everybody who supports Comic Book Herald, and specifically those on patreon.com/Comic Book Herald who support the site so generously. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. Thanks in particular to everybody who supports the site via the Mysterious Benefactors tier. One of the benefits of the Mysterious Benefactors tier is I will read your name out loud on these Kraken Krakoa vids. So thank you, Ron Paul Kirkley, Jesse W., Professor Pride, Steve Brennan, Cole Weathers, Martin Lopez, Chris Isidro, Brent Bowser, Professor X3769, and PD Appleseed. Thank you all for your support of Comic Book Herald. Again, I'm Dave. You can find my stuff at comicbookherald.com, at Comic Book Herald on social. Look for the best comics ever in My Marvel This Year podcast for more. And again, join us this Saturday, November 28th. It's going to be me, Blurred Without Fear, and the Cerebros talking Ten of Swords post-game. And I bet a lot of theories about the Reign of X. So thanks, everybody, for listening. And as always, enjoy the comics.